celebration of homosexuality in a concert capping off Gay Pride Week.
Let's do it, please do it, even educated, please do it. Let's do it, let's fall in love. Oh.
For accompanist Evan Stoltz, who marched with the chorus in the annual parade, taking part in the Hamer study was an equally political act.
Oh, great, the Christian Coalition is here.
The reason why I wanted to participate relate to my feelings as I sit in front of a TV or sit and read a paper and experience the incredible rhetoric that occurs in this culture about homosexuality. I was interested in participating in a study that might try and move that dialogue, move that rhetoric away from discussions of morality, if it were proven that there was some genetic indicator.
I think it might help persuade some people to look at it, look upon us with a bit more open-mindedness.
Eric, Evan, and David Stoltz were raised by open-minded parents. Of the three, only David, Eric's fraternal twin, is heterosexual. Differences between the twins were apparent at an early age.
I guess I was naive, but I always celebrated the differences in our boys.
Janet Stoltz and her husband encouraged the boys to find their own identities. One Christmas, the twins posed with the gifts they'd requested. David, the heterosexual brother, with his war toys, a rifle, a tank, an army tent. And Eric with his baby doll, kitchen set, and cardboard house.
I didn't think about their sexuality. I thought about what wonderful boys they all were, and they were all giving us different things to enjoy.
Eric didn't reveal his homosexuality to his parents until he was a college sophomore.
My love was there as strong as ever, and I realized that I had a lot to learn, because I'd known of homosexuality as a kind of a thing that was elsewhere or it happened to other people. And so my feelings were not hostile, but I just realized that I was needing some help from people, Eric and others, who could be helpful to my understandings.
Coincidentally, Taylor Stoltz's Antioch College classmate, Richard Pillard, is a psychiatrist with a personal interest in understanding and researching the genetics of sexual orientation.
As I was realizing in my 20s that I was a gay person, gay man, I also began to realize that my sister and brother were both gay. There are three of us in the family. The leading theory of the time was that homosexual orientation was the result of some developmental abnormality. And that just seemed to me wrong.
Pillard, a professor at Boston University School of Medicine, is one of a number of scientists who laid the groundwork for Hamer's research. In a family study published last year, Pillard found that the identical twin of a gay man has a 52% chance of also being gay. He believes the findings point toward a very strong genetic basis for homosexuality.
Too often in the past, I think parents have tended to blame themselves or to try to find something in the way they reared their children to account for the child's gayness. Since there is a genetic predisposition, it may simply be the whisper of the genes showing through.
Another gay scientist with gay siblings, Simon LeVay, has become the most outspoken proponent of a biological basis for homosexuality. He studied the brains of gay men who, like his lover, had died of AIDS. LeVay made news around the world in 1991 with his discovery that a portion of the hypothalamus, the part of the brain responsible for the sex drive, was smaller in gay men than in heterosexual males.
It really showing that a part of the brain that's involved in sex behavior has these structural differences between gay and straight men, I think reinforces the notion that gay men have always had about themselves, that their sexual orientation is not something so trivial or superficial or something they can put on or take off or can be easily changed. It's really a deep-set part of their personality.
Is that perhaps a grandiose conclusion to draw after looking at only 19 gay men?
Well, only, it took a long time to analyze that number of brains. It's hard work.
LeVay has since left the scientific life to write, lecture, and campaign for gay rights.
Whatever the accomplishments of science, we won't gain our rights by the research of any scientist. We'll gain our rights by fighting for them.
But while LeVay spreads the message that homosexuals are born that way, critics, including some scientists, argue that too much has been made of the biological and genetic research. At Harvard University, neurobiologist Evan Balaban studies how behavior, in this case bird calls, is influenced by genes and the brain. Although he supports gay rights, Balaban believes the studies linking biology and homosexuality are all flawed.
I believe that the science in these studies is really not up to the standard that you would want to be able to accept the conclusions that have been drawn from some of them.
Of LeVay's conclusion that gay men have smaller portions of the hypothalamus, Balaban argues that something as simple as stress levels could account for the difference. As for Pillard's twin studies, Balaban questions the genetic explanation since the twins were raised together. He says that confuses the effects of nature and nurture. And he questions the latest report by Dean Hamer, linking part of the X chromosome to sexual orientation. Balaban thinks that conclusion could overlook other traits the gay subjects may have in common.
Since this method relies on just a correlation between two things, you would want to ask, is there any other aspect of these individuals that is also similar besides their sexual orientation? Because a correlation...
Eye color,
anything, you
length
name
of
it.
nose,
you name it.
like that.
I mean, this is the problem with these kinds of studies. And the example I always like to give is that it is probably possible for many years of data to come up with some significant correlation between stock market prices and phases of the moon. And I think it would be a mistake to connect phases of the moon as causing changes in stock market prices without first looking at other obvious things such as economic indicators. And so in a way, if you are only correlating differences in genetic variation with one aspect of people, you're risking doing something similarly ludicrous.
Could there be other things that you didn't look for that all these people had in common that had nothing to do with being gay? Could they all be left-handed? Could they all have big earlobes? Could they all have large noses?
Well, they weren't all left-handed. They didn't all have big ears, and they didn't all have big noses, nor did they share any other obvious characteristics that we assayed for. It's always possible that such characteristics exist, but if they do, it will then follow that that characteristic in turn is correlated with being gay.
Correlations between homosexuality and biology are being welcomed by many in the gay community. Most of the people we spoke with at this Seattle Gay Pride Parade said the latest scientific findings validate their own feelings. But any notion that homosexuality is inborn is hotly disputed by those Freudian psychoanalysts who claim to be able to cure it. In 1973, the American Psychiatric Association took homosexuality off its list of mental disorders. The leader of the fight against that move, which he still feels was a mistake, was Dr. Charles Socarides.
In my opinion, the causation for homosexuality has been discovered now psychoanalytically, which is really counter to all the genetic studies. We feel that the homosexual becomes homosexual due to a disturbance in early development. The basis is perhaps an abdicating father who did not allow the child to identify with him, and a mother that was too psychologically crushing. So he was unable to form his individual identity as a boy.
The classical Freudian explanation for homosexuality...
Oh, God. I'm sorry.
...is, as you know, an aloof father and an overprotective mother. Gay brothers Ralph and David White were among the volunteers for the Hamer genetic study.
We did not necessarily grow up with Ward and June Cleaver, but we did grow up with two loving parents who were normal human beings and may have had faux pas at moments, but no.
This Freudian theory, it's this sort of slap that suggests that had they done their jobs right, you wouldn't have turned out this way. And that I'm tired of. I mean, I don't believe that the way I turned out is because of something that my parents failed to do.
Just as some psychoanalysts don't subscribe to a biological explanation for homosexuality, neither do religious conservatives. The Reverend Louis Sheldon is a Presbyterian minister who heads the Traditional Values Coalition. Sheldon lobbies against gay rights and resents any suggestion that homosexuality might be something other than an immoral choice.
Homosexuality is not genetic. I would say basically it's a very, very simple thing. It's so simple, it's complicated. The body parts don't fit. And I don't believe nature would do that to the human race.
Might your feelings change if it is proven that homosexuality is biologically caused?
No, the feelings would not change on my part, because if people are have the propensity to be homosexual from some reason, or like alcoholic problems that arise, or some kind of propensity for that, you still cannot justify the lifestyle.
Sheldon views the gay civil rights movement with alarm. He fears that genetic explanations for homosexuality will make more people feel it's okay to be gay. But what the Reverend Sheldon considers worrisome, Tori Osborne welcomes.
I love you! You look so beautiful! This is the beginning of the queer 90s!
As executive director of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, Osborne is a major player on the political scene who more than once has locked horns with Lewis Sheldon.
Much of what the Lou Sheldons, the Christian Coalition, the Pat Robertsons, the Pat Buchanans say in their arguments against us is that these people choose to be this way. So I think an effective argument, an effective political argument, an effective even sort of legal argument is that no, in fact, increasing scientific evidence shows that we don't choose, or most of us anyway, don't choose to be this way.
Nonetheless, notwithstanding your opinion of Lou Sheldon, don't you think he does speak for many Americans?
I don't fool myself about this. People are still uncomfortable with us, what I call the yuck factor. They, when confronted with the idea of homosexuality or discussion about it, people just want it to go away. They want to bury it. They want it to, don't ask, don't tell, you know. And it's, and that's because we are at the beginning of a conversation with America about an issue that's very uncomfortable.
It's more than just a conversation, as gays rally for civil rights on issue after issue, from the military to motherhood. They confront America's most cherished institutions. Gay leaders hope the scientific studies could be powerful weapons in anti-discrimination battles.
Hey, 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 ho, 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 homophobia's got to go.
As more and more gays emerge from the closet, some meet forces trying to push them back in. In 1978, just as he was coming out, Eric Stoltz was brutally assaulted in a Dartmouth College dormitory. He wound up in intensive care.
I was very close to death and was attached to all kinds of life support systems, and they said that I'd been found in the back of the closet of my dorm room, and I'd been there for 7 days, evidently, before someone had found me. And I was naked and covered with cuts and bruises, and I immediately thought, well, I've been fag-bashed.
While few gays have been so violently abused, many have experienced some form of discrimination. In 1982, Ralph White says he was asked to leave his job as legislative aide to Senator Sam Nunn simply because he was gay.
It was very painful. I now understand what it means to be dismissed from a job because someone doesn't like who you are.
And do you think these kinds of studies that are coming out might prevent the kinds of things that happen to you?
I'd like to hope so.
According to polls, most Americans believe homosexuality is immoral and oppose gay rights. But those who accept a biological explanation tend to be more tolerant. With so much at stake, some are questioning the motives of the scientists doing the research.
It's remarkable that these studies are coming out mostly by gay scientists in an effort to prove that homosexuality is innate. I think this is very ill-advised.
Why?
I think it has a political agenda.
Do you believe that there's a political environment outside the lab, or maybe even inside the lab, that's driving this kind of research?
I think that there are certainly political and social consequences of this research, but at least in my laboratory, it certainly is not what drives the research. Scientific studies of the sort that we've done should be judged solely on their scientific merits.
Hamer's lab is pressing forward. His next step will be to isolate the gene that may be responsible for sexual orientation and then try to figure out how it works. Meanwhile, one of Hamer's colleagues, Dr. Angela Paratucci, is conducting a similar study on lesbians.
Side of the family certainly is extremely interesting.
Preliminary findings indicate that lesbianism is also an inherited trait, and the investigators are hunting for the genetic clues to sexual orientation in women. But as advances are made in this research, scientists like Hamer worry their findings could be misused, conjuring a future in which homosexuals would be genetically altered, or potentially gay babies would be aborted.
Our research is not designed to try and test whether or not people are gay or lesbian. But, of course, it's always possible that in the future, somebody less scrupulous than us, for example, an insurance company, might try to design some sort of blood test or amniocentesis test which would identify people's sexual orientation. I think that that would be fundamentally wrong. I think it would be unethical. And I think that because it's wrong to discriminate against people based on their genes.
Besides, even the strongest proponents of a genetic theory of homosexuality are not ruling out environment as a contributing factor. Right now, all scientists can say with certainty is that sexuality is complex. But as the debate over gay rights escalates, the mounting biological evidence will be thrust to center stage.
Again, the major story of this Thursday remained the Midwest flood. Water rose in some cities, receded in others. President Clinton met with congressional leaders about aid for the area. He plans to make his third visit to the region Saturday. Good night, Roger.
Good night, Jim. We'll be back tomorrow with coverage of the flood and our regular Friday political analysis. I'm Roger Mudd. Thank you and good night.
Major funding for the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM. Supermarket to the world. And by New York Life, yet another example of New York Life's wise investment philosophy. Funding has also been provided by PepsiCo. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
I'm Nancy Marshall with OPB Radio. Tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on OPB Radio, it's Morning Edition. Tomorrow, 2 congressional opinions on mandatory prison terms for drug offenders. That's tomorrow morning on OPB Radio.
Video cassettes of the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour are available from PBS Video. Call 1-800-328-PBS-1.
This is PBS.
Funding for the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been